Hello. Now, I know I kind of look like a fanboy right now, but yeah, I kind of am. And, I just wanted to go over Tyler's old stuff and, just appreciate music in general. Because what I want to start doing is reviewing all music, whether I've listened to it or not, unbiased, of course. No funny business here. Now, like most people, the first time I ever heard of Tyler was through, him eating roaches and whatnot, yonkers. Like everyone else, I was weirded out by it. Me being a weird kid myself, and I have to admit this, my favorite rapper at the time was Hopsin, and Hopsin dissed Tyler, and I was one of the few humans on Earth who took Hopsin's side, so yeah, times were different back then. Now, when I really started listening to Tyler was when Igor came out. And I'm not going to lie to you, yeah, that's pretty late in the game. But to be fair, his albums at first were pretty weird. And I feel like even he could admit that. But, but after Igor, I went through all of his old stuff. And some's hits, some's are misses. But either way, it's fun looking at the evolution of someone as, for better lack of a term, is as much of a genius as Tyler is, because his production is the main reason why I even like him. His rapping ability is definitely there, but comparatively to the Kendricks and the J. Coles of the world, he's not the greatest lyricist ever or nothing. So I feel like that's why I like music so much, though, is everyone has different reasons to listen to them. I'm not gonna put on Big Sean, alone in my headphones, to be honest with you. I mean, I might, you never know. But if I'm out and about, hey, Big Sean hits, No disrespect to Big Sean. I don't know why I said him specifically, but anyways. But enough with all the hoopla. Today we're talking about Bastard specifically. And as you can see, I don't have that vinyl. Take what you can get. This is the closest I can get. Here's Bastard right here. There you go. Now, what I'm going to do is rate this album as fairly as possible. And I'm going to go track by track, saying what I think of each individual track, rating it 1 through 10. And by the end, we'll have an average of what I rate the album. This ranking system is horrible, but it's my channel, so there you go. Now, track 1, Bastard.
This is what the devil plays before he goes to sleep.
Now, off rip, let me give you some lore on myself. I am a bastard by definition. I did not have my father in my life, so this album is pretty on the nose for a lot of things I went through as a child. But it is 2025. I'm 23 years old, and yeah, I don't really care anymore. But kind of like Tyler, you mature through that, and not to jump ahead of ourselves, he has several songs where he talks about his father, and maybe those feelings of resentment weren't that deserved, like on the song Like Me, in which his mother tells him it was her fault. So anyways, we're jumping ahead. The song Bastard specifically is definitely a good introduction to everything you're about to hear on the album. The production is great. Tyler himself said he used a trial version of FL Studio to create these beats, so he could not go back and change them once he was done with them. So that's also pretty evident with the types of beats he was making. But at the end of the day, this man made it work. This beat still holds up today. The dark piano throughout the track really sets the tone, and his vulgar tone and deep voice throughout the entire album is very telling for his thought processes at the time as a 17, 18-year-old. And for anyone who, listens to current Tyler and has never heard this version of Tyler, yeah, he says the F word a lot throughout this entire album. And yeah, it's hard to listen to sometimes, but it was 2010. I mean, that's not an excuse, but, it was a different time. As you're going to know, and, again, this is an unbiased review. I actually really like darker beats and this type of rapping style. So for the first track that really sets the tone and, allows Tyler to get his frustrations out about a lot of things. This is the first thing I'm ever going to rate on this channel. So this is going to be very telling for everything else I do, depending on what I give this. But I'm going to give track 1 a 7.0. I feel like that's fair. Now, throughout this track, it's very interesting seeing how self-aware he was of just about how depressed he was, how much he knew his music was very much not for children. But there's something endearing about it, how you know that this child who spends a lot of time thinking in his head is just letting out his raw, unfiltered thoughts. And Tyler himself has said he got big off of his rough drafts. All of OF did, because, yeah, they were just releasing anything. All right, now, track 2, 7. Now, this track, the beat is fire, even for today's standard. It's insane looking back at how his production evolved, but his style, you can still tell when he was the one producing a track, if you know what I mean. There's just certain elements to it. You're gonna learn I'm not very good at describing music, but I like the way it sounds. So now in this track, he pretty much just goes off and even clearly states he's very angry throughout it, and rightfully so, because, you know, obviously this is 2009, which is insane. So he had this apparent beef with two blogs, one called Two Dope Boys and another called Nah Right. And he states if he had a track with Dom Kennedy, then maybe he'd get some respect, which is hilarious looking back at it now, because first of all, Dom Kennedy's fire, and secondly, those two took two very different career paths. And you know, no shade to Dom Kennedy, but Tyler is much bigger than Dom Kennedy. So it's just funny looking at it, you know, and hindsight is 2020 and all that. But yeah, Tyler is very angry, and he lets all of his thoughts out unfiltered. But, you know, he says a lot of things that I cannot repeat on this channel, or any channel, if I want to have a career. Like he says at the end of the track, he doesn't mean to offend anyone. Psych, he's just kidding. Because, yeah, here's the thing with old Tyler, is even back then he got a lot of flack for lack of a better term, rage bait and shock rap, as it's just to incite, you know, feelings out of individuals that don't understand it. And it was to an extent, let's be honest. We're going to get into some crazier tracks, but this one in particular, I like the beat, I like his flow. Is it something I would bump now? Honestly, out of the rest of the album, probably. I'd still listen to this today. I think it holds up, other than, you know, certain words. But if I had to rate this 1 through 10, I give this a 7.5. The beat is carrying it quite a bit for me. But hey, it's 2023. Hey, it's 2025. Beat is all that matters now. So, but yes. Anyways, on to track 3, Odd Toddlers. Now, this track includes Casey Veggies, which, if you've been keeping up with OF since this, yeah, him and Tyler aren't the best of friends, at least as far as we know. I don't want to live vicariously through, you know, individuals that are much more successful than me. But as far as we know, they're not cool anymore, which is not the point of this video. But again, looking at it from the lens of today, it's just interesting to think about. First thing I gotta mention is the sample is fire. He sampled the same thing that MF Doom did in One Beer, or what I think he probably did, literally just sample One Beer, which, you know, sample inception, I guess you could call it. But either way, the beat is hard, and it's dope that someone like Tyler back in 2009 was, you know, listening to someone like MF Doom, who, if you know anything about that guy, he is very much fire, and I'm also a very big fan of his, if you couldn't tell. But yeah, in this track, just another fire beat, fire bars. This track is actually pretty safe. He actually performed this not that long ago, which is pretty cool if you're, you know, an old fan of his. But yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, there's not a whole lot to say. I mean, it's pretty cool that, you know, they were rocking Supreme back then, because, you know, it's like one of the biggest things ever now. And Tyler's a big part of that, and even he knows that. Braggadocio, they're just talking their shit and, you know, saying what they got to say. If I had to rate this 1 through 10, and again, don't take these scores to heart, please. I'm just doing this for fun, okay? I don't want to argue about an album that when it came out, I was 8, by the way. If I had to rate this track 1 out of 10, I would give it a solid 6.5. Now, if you think these scores are safe, they are a little bit, but to be fair, I'm not hard to please, you know, unless I hear something that's literally like painful to listen to. I'm probably gonna rate it pretty solid. Track 4, French. This track is featuring Haji, which, if you know anything about Old OF, I don't think him and Tyler are friends anymore. Not that it matters. I'm not, you know, here to speak on anything I don't know about. Yeah, it's just funny looking at things like that in, you know, today's lens. But we're here to talk about the track, and I will start off by saying the beat is fire. It bumps crazy. The bass is insane. And again, I can't stress this enough. Tyler was 17, 18 when he made this, so impressive as hell, to say the least. But if we're talking about, you know, the subject matter, the chorus, you better check my French, very telling for everything Tyler says on it, because he says a lot. To quote some specific lyrics, he says, "Yo, I'm 17, already sniffing blow. I tell my friends it's asthma every time I itch my throat. And don't tell R. Kelly where my little sister go." Yeah, looking at Haji's verse, it's actually very tame compared to Tyler's, but you know, it fits the track very well. He does what he does. But yeah, man, the more you get through this album, it's just very telling. Tyler was a troubled child, and it's honestly for the best he got into music, because the things he was imagining were scary, to say the least. And everyone has, you know, intrusive thoughts and whatnot, but that's... I've never had an intrusive thought about that. I'm just letting you know. But if I had to rate this track, lyrics, beat, all included, genuinely, I would give this one an 8, because he sticks to the topic. He has some clever bars and, you know, suggestive lyrics, but for the time, it's fire, undoubtedly. So I give it an 8. Now, my favorite, it transitions into the songs, and a lot of songs on this album do that. But he talks about, you know, does he have a girl? No. If he did, and then, you know, it transitions into the next track. And the next track, number 5, Blow.
If this was a game, I already know that I would.
Now, by the title of the song, you can already tell what type of timing Tyler's going to be on. And yeah, he sticks to it with lines such as juicy and hot like a black temper, which, for the record, I'm just going to say this now. I grew up believing this stereotype, you know, black women, you know, are aggressive. And I'm just here to say, not all of them are. And if any would like to prove that point, my comments are open. Anyways, but if I had to sum this song up, I mean, he says it himself, because all I really want to do is and snort blow. I mean, not much else to say there. And first off, I can't glaze this man enough for this. Production is fire, and the ad-libs in background, the blow, are all very fire, and it's just interesting seeing how detailed he really gets throughout these tracks, because if you really listen, he's very in-depth with a lot of the stuff he does, even if it is vulgar and, you know, shock rap. The production, you can't even deny, is very, very, very well made, and not even just for the time today, because a lot of people just hop on a beat and release it. Like, that's... And there's nothing wrong with that if it's a good song, but, you know, Tyler definitely put in the extra work. But just to point out one more lyric, he says, "I like girls how I like my drugs, white." And, you know, good for Tyler. Good for him. But if I had to rate this track, and as much as I like the production, genuinely, I give this one an even 6. The production, again, fire, but the subject matter is... very of the time. I can't stress that enough, but yes, 6 even. Track 6, Pigs Fly. First of all, I just want to say the song features Domogenesis, and Domogenesis is still fire to this day. The most underrated member of Odd Future for sure. And they just, I mean, this is a couple years ago, but they put No Idols on streaming, and fire. That's all you need to know. Now, regarding the song, it's about how Tyler, you know, can make a pig fly, essentially saying he can do the impossible. Judging by everything he's done and accomplished since then, he proved his point very well. And to point out one lyric, like food for thought was my father, but I ain't have the hunger. And he really really drives home the name of the album. He really did not like his father and the fact that he was gone, and it's very telling that he keeps saying it. And again, like I said at the beginning of the video, I get it, but damn, this was one way of coping, I will say that much. He also says, so I'm chasing dreams, no realities, hoping that maturity won't be too mad at me. And I actually really like that lyric, because as a chronic daydreamer, I think about a lot of things instead of doing a lot of things, which is why you can see my last couple videos or yearly uploads. Not the point. The point is, I relate to it. I relate to a lot of things Tyler says in this album. Not anything to do with the, the rape, murder, and, other things he keeps saying. But his thought processes, I do understand. Now, this is one of those tracks where the beat is definitely the darkest part of the song. Tyler definitely has some lines in there. Obviously, he always does. But the dark beat, the lyrics, Genesis, fire as always. I don't think I've ever heard a bad verse from him. If I had to rate this out of 10, I'll be honest, it's not one of the ones I'd probably go to the most. It is good, but I give this a 6.3. I feel like that's fair. The longer I go, the more like, am I bullshitting these scores? I don't know. We'll see at the end. These aren't locked in. If I feel like, I made a mistake by the end of this, I will correct myself. I can take accountability. So, track 7, Parade. First of all, again, beat fire, but literally the first lyric, and looking at this line in 2025 is hilarious because it sounds like a crazy subliminal, but it's not. This came out in 2009. Welcome to the euphoria of cocaine without Abel, which is, this has nothing to do with The Weeknd. This has nothing to do with the show or anything. This is just one of those lines that, sounds crazy in 2020 hindsight. But basically, the point of this song is Tyler admitting he's not a man yet. He's very immature, and he knows it, and he's gonna keep being a kid, which honestly is the one thing I will say I very much respect about Tyler is and it seems like he still is today, is very much in tune with his inner child, just doing what he wants, having fun, not caring about the results. And, that's how I need to be. And that's, some people learned it early, some people learn it late, but it's one of the many reasons he's successful. I will say that much. I mean, one of the lyrics is literally, I scream and jump around on couches while you sit and talk, which is honestly very relatable because, I don't like staying still sometimes. My TV stays on Cartoon Network. That Twilight. And preach. If you know, you know. But he also says another very relatable lyric to me. Go to college, get a job, marry, have a kid. Watch them grow and then you die. No, the system. And all I'm gonna say is I did not go to college. That's all I'm gonna say. The main thing I think to take away is that it's easily one of the most grounded and real songs I could, if I had to say that, on the album, because it's one of the few where he's not creating characters or renaming real life individuals in his life, having fantasies about very dark things and dismembering and necrophilia, to say the least. He's actually saying some real stuff on here, and it's all relatable. I actually really like this track. But to quote Tyler in this song, they say I'm immature, I say they depressed. I agree. But since this song is very relatable and I very much like this track, if I had to rate it 1 out of 10, I give this a 7.5. Now, I will say this rating was mainly based on the lyrics. The beat's fire too, but of all the beats on this album, it's not the best. But I like what he has to say. I enjoy it personally. Unbiased, of course. And yeah, 7.5. Track 8, Slow It Down. Most of the tracks on this album have very simple beats for the most part, but this beat is particularly simple. Definitely one of the least vulgar on the album. He obviously still has his lines in there, he always does. But one thing I will mention is the chorus specifically reminds me a lot of a Brockhampton song. Obviously, I know he inspired them. This came out way before them, I'm aware. But it's just funny seeing, elements like that. People that I both respect and, enjoy their music. All their music. But yeah, this track in particular is, not a nothing burger, but definitely, one of the least dissectable tracks on the album. Is that a word? I don't know. Did I make that up? I don't know. But I will point out one of my favorite bars on the entire album. Kelly, where is Regis? Found Alicia, now she keyless. Yo. How long did it take to come up with that? That's crazy. Shout out to Alicia Keys, by the way. But yeah, this song isn't too crazy. Everybody does their thing. It's a very listenable song. Beat's simple. Beat's cool. Flows are cool. Honestly, out of everything I've listened to, I have to give this like a 5.5. It's not bad at all. And I will say, when I'm rating how I see it is 5 is the middle, 5 being, you know, either average, you know, everything above 5 is good. Like 6 is good. That means I like it. Everything under 5 means I have either some issues with it or it's not something I really care for. But 5 means completely average, and there's nothing wrong with that. Not everything's a 10. I'm being very, very fair so far. On to the track with my favorite name on the entire album. Number 9, Ass Milk.
Addicts arise when I arrive in this.
And first thing I have to mention immediately, this track features Earl Sweatshirt, which, my guy. And it's just funny looking back at how different Earl and Tyler's styles are these days, because, you know, I don't know if I could even see them on a track like this anymore. Earl's doing his lo-fi, you know, introspective, crazy thing. His last album was actually really good. I just listened to it. And, you know, Tyler's doing whatever Tyler feels like, essentially. But yeah, they both do their thing on this track. My favorite part isn't even the track. It's when, you know, we don't see it, we just hear it. Tyler attacks Earl, big brother, little brother situation there. And it's cute, you know, it's wholesome, you know, it's nice. That's probably the only time I'm going to say that this entire video, because, you know, we got a couple more tracks to go. But speaking of, to pivot into that territory, a direct quote from this song, Tyler's first verse. I just don't give a lot. The only time I do is when is screaming, Tyler, stop. Yes, more rape references throughout this album. And that is one thing I will say. That's why this album is very much not safe for work, you could say, or function ready, I guess. Maybe one or two tracks you could play out loud and about, but this isn't one of them. It's called Ass Milk. I want to reiterate that. And for the record, I just thought about this now. That visual is disgusting, by the way. But I will say, so far, of all the features on this album, Earl is one of the few to like actually match Tyler's energy on his, you know. Sloppy seconds is my preference, except for when I'm feeding on the flesh of a pedestrian. Carved carcasses in the, oh my god. Carved carcasses in the garage, don't park in it. Hard is finding at Harvard. Yeah, that, I'm afraid to say that's a bar. Also, I haven't mentioned it yet, but this beat legitimately is one of my favorites on the album. It's fire. And he also says, the reincarnation of 98 Eminem, which you could honestly write this whole album off as that. But Tyler has mentioned several times Eminem is, you know, his influence. And it's very, very, I will say this album is definitely the biggest example of that. Some of Goblin too, a little bit, but definitely this one. But one of my favorite lines is, you don't skate, take off the box logo. And that was in 09. That still applies to a lot of people. And I will say, I own my fair share of Vans. I do not skate, but I play Tony Hawk. So I live vicariously through that. These two games in particular took so much time from my life that I will never get back. And it was worth every second. Now this legendary duo does their thing, going back and forth on the track. Beats fire, lyrics, you know. Fire is, I don't know if that's the right term to use, but they do their thing. If I had to rate this 1 through 10, I would have to give the song Ass Milk. I give it a 7.0. I feel like that's very fair. I enjoy it. It has Earl in it. That's extra points. Yeah, I'm not a professional at this, by the way. I'm just having fun, man. Now, track 10, VCR/Wheels.
I don't want to play you. I just want to.
If you are a fan of Tyler, you will know this is the first of many combined track 10s until he broke that streak for that album. It's just one of those things, you know, he just does it, you know. It's just, you know, iconic's not the right word because so many people overuse that. It's one of Tyler's staples. I will say that much. Anyways, I've mentioned the beats a lot, but this definitely is my favorite beat on the album. It holds up crazy good today. It's fire. If it were any other artist rapping on this, I don't think they would have chosen the lyrics they chose. So it's just funny Tyler chose a beat like this to say what he has to say. The beat is definitely the most wholesome thing I have to say about this track. The first lyric is, I don't want to play you, I just want to tape you undressing and I lay you down and record soft porn. Do I even have to say anything else? And the chorus, press my buttons, baby, press my buttons. Yeah, I can't reiterate this enough. This is a troubled child. Looking back on it, it's honestly hilarious that his mother is cool and supportive as she is when she raised a child like that, because Jesus, man, if I recorded any of this stuff and it was discovered, I would definitely be in a psychiatric watch of some sort, probably with a straitjacket. Because, yeah, no. Now, in almost any other instance, with a song about forcing a woman to have your way with you on tape and recording it, in any other instance, a song like that would definitely not be in my playlist. But the chorus, flow, this beats, I like it, man. Not what he's saying. I don't agree with it at all. The beat's fire, man. Now, the second half of the track, Wheels, is a little longer, and it's also kind of on the same type of timing. The beat is different, even slower, and he does the old school Tyler thing of, you know, deepening his voice and, you know, that style. And I just want to say, whoever this Raquel chick is he keeps talking about throughout this album, yeah, she created a monster. Because think about it, if she did accept his advances, you could say, we wouldn't have had a lot of the tracks on this album, and I wonder if he would have been a more normal person. I don't know. If not, then thank you, Raquel, or as we'll later know her, Sarah. We're getting ahead of ourselves though. But yeah, the second half of the track is just kind of him, you know, on the same type of timing, saying his fantasies. And I will say I much prefer the first half of the track to the second, but still not bad. And if I have to give this a collective score, VCR/Wheels as one track, Wheels bogs it down just a tad bit, but because the beat is so fire, I have to give this like, and because it's so short too, I give it a solid 7.5. Just for the record, I've already forgotten what I've given the other track, so once we go back, gather it all, this will hopefully make sense in the end. Track 11, Session.
Look, I'm Tyler, Mr. Green Hat.
Now, this song features Haji Beats and Mike G, but through listening to this, I discovered that actually the original verse had Brandon Deshawn instead of Mike G, and it's actually really hard to find online. And apparently, obviously, this happened so long ago, I'm sure nobody cares about it now, but Tyler had beef with Brandon Deshawn, and they full out just kicked him out the group, replaced the verse, which I think is crazy to do, even if you had beef with him, but damn. But to be completely honest with you, not that much of value was lost. Like, his verse isn't bad, definitely not at all, but I think Mike G fits the song better. It's just a track that's about freestyling and chilling with your homies, so I mean, was it that serious? Probably not. Now, I will say I really enjoy the part where Tyler, you know, says he doesn't smoke and, you know, he'll just rap for them instead, because very relatable. You know, this isn't about me, but I am also straight edge. That's something I've had to go through myself. So for that fact that it's literally just about homies freestyling, Tyler doesn't smoke, you know, it's a cool track and I thoroughly enjoy it. Is it something, you know, that's as shocking and, you know, crazy as all the other tracks on the album? Definitely not. Probably one of the chillest tracks on the album. The beat's fire. Is it something I go back to that often? If I had to rate it through 1 out of 10, it's a cool track. I give it like a 6.5. I'll say that's fair. Now, track 12, Sarah.
So I went down south, but I ended up north.
Yeah, no, this is definitely the track that should have got Tyler arrested. Let's be honest here. Going through his entire career and seeing, you know, what this man has become, this song is ridiculous. And it doesn't help he even got some woman to be the voice in the background throughout it. It is genuinely hard to listen to, and if someone, you know, has any triggering trauma, I could see the song, you know, being very, very much not listenable. But yeah, Tyler was his outlet. Let's just be glad it was music. I can't reiterate that enough. And honestly, one of the craziest facts about this track, I think, is not even just the subject matter itself. It's the fact that Tyler was comfortable enough in his own skin to sit in front of a microphone at 17, 18 years old and say all of this stuff loud with no shame attached. And I feel like that's the main reason Tyler has gotten to the point he's gotten to, because he genuinely did not care. A lot of people say they don't care. A lot of people say nothing bothers them, but like, dude, to record something like like this with no shame, no regret is very telling. I respect it from that perspective, but damn, I probably never bumped this in the whip. I'll let you know that. For the record, this song is not on streaming of any kind. So if it ever does get to streaming, which I hope it does, I mean, it's cool for preservation purposes, but if it does get on streaming and, you know, someone who's never listened to Tyler listens to this, yeah, it's going to be a problem. Now, if I had to quote a lyric that, you know, is indicative of the entire song, I don't even really want to say this out loud, but, and I'm your dead body, your all, I'm probably going to have to censor half of that. Again, this man had a problem. Also, the random beeps of the smoke alarm battery dying is hilarious because it legitimately scared me when I was listening to this, and it gives me PTSD because, you know, if you know, it becomes numb to you when you've heard it so much, but when you haven't heard it in a while, it's like a shock to your system. But I just think that's hilarious that is heard throughout the track for no rhyme or reason other than probably his smoke alarm probably was dying, unless he said somewhere that he put that in there legitimately for some reason. I don't know why you would, but I feel like that makes the track more real, to say the least. It grounds you in reality to a situation that could legitimately happen. Thankfully it didn't, I hope. Yeah, this track is just something else. And yeah, it doesn't help that the track ends with him committing Sudoku or whatever. Yeah, it's a very... Don't show this to your grandparents. That's all I'm gonna say. And as a song, the beat is actually not one of my favorites on the album. It's very simple. It's not bad by any means. He definitely lets his lyrics shine more than anything. But man, would I ever go out of my way to listen to this without the context of the album? No, I'm just gonna say that no. Now, if I have to be fair and honest, unbiased, of course, and if I'm rating this 1 out of 10, again, it's cool to look back at this and see the brain of, you know, this individual and how he's evolved over the years. But as a song and the subject matter, and it gets its point across, it's not bad in the aspect of art. I guess you could say it does exactly what it's intending to do. But as a song and as a music enjoyer, I have to give this song like a 4.5. It's hard to listen to sometimes because it's not something I relate to. I can put that on everything I love. It's of its time, and as a piece of art, I respect, you know, the fact that he released it. Yeah, necrophilia is not my forte. So track 13, Jack and the Beanstalk. Yeah, this song is, for lack of a better term, the most hip-hop track on the album. I mean, it literally samples Jay-Z throughout it and in the hook. The beat is definitely old school Tyler. You can tell he found whatever sounds he could and put it together, as he usually does on this album. But it just works. Like, he understands music, and that's what's very apparent throughout this album, is if you just listen to the production, it's great. And then he puts lyrics on the track. But this particular track in general isn't, you know, too crazy. He, you know, he's just rapping. As he says, they don't paint pictures, they just trace me. So he's basically saying, you know, he's a trendsetter, and he said that a lot throughout his career. He's a leader, and he likes to reiterate that. And there's a very relatable bar. White and black like she's a motherfucking zebra mixed. And there's an interesting bar. He says, I think Supreme suck. We nolly all our Nikes. And if you know Tyler, obviously he's speaking in the perspective of someone he thinks is corny. But not that long ago, I saw him rocking some Jordans. And, you know, that's how you know he's matured. Tyler's turned a new leaf. But yeah, there's another braggy track. He's playing into the rap gimmick thing that people really want him to be, and he chooses to not do that. So that's kind of the point of this track. And yeah, it's cool. You know, I like the hook. I like the sample. I like the beat. I feel like I can't go any higher than a 7.2 out of 10. Next track, number 14, Tina. The opening segment of this track pretty much sums up Tyler's very early OF career because, yeah, that's pretty much, you know, all they used to do. This track includes Jasper and Taco, two non-rappers of the Odd Future collective. I must say, Jasper, if he really like tried, I feel like he genuinely could have made some music. This verse is better than some of the other members of OF who I will not name out of respect. Jasper does, you know, show up in other tracks later down the line, but only a handful. Yeah, this is honestly one of his best, and it's one of his earliest too. Also, Taco's part is hilarious, and he sounds super young here. It's just funny seeing how these two evolved into, you know, regular members of like the Jackass cast. Time is a funny thing, and literally everyone involved in this album is just doing something completely different. Also, in this song and a couple others on the album, he really does not like jerking, which I know that means something else in 2025, but if you were, you know, in the know back then, jerking was a very popular dance craze that even I partook in, which is, you know, saying a lot. But yeah, Tyler's dislike of this makes a lot of sense. He sees himself as an outsider, as different. He was just hating on anything that was popular, let's be honest. I mean, he later comes out and hates B.O.B. and Haley Williams' Airplanes. Like, how do you hate that song? That's a banger. But yeah, this song is loud and aggressive, very in your face. I mean, other than the funny verses and the appearances of Taco and Jasper, there's not a whole lot to this track, honestly. And the beat's cool, but it's a little repetitive. It's not bad. Definitely not one of my favorites on the album. I have to give this out of 10. If I'm being honest, like a 4.9. It's not my favorite. It's run of the mill a little bit for Tyler anyway. And the final track of the album, track 15, Inglorious.
My father died the day I came out of my mother's.
Not to beat a dead horse, but again, I very much relate to this track, and I understand Tyler's frustrations, and he really drives home everything he's been saying into this final track. Yeah, man, he did state his father gave him a Stussy hoodie and a vinyl, and you know, that was his pretty much only gift to him, and obviously that's not enough for years of not being there. Chorus is very relatable, going through life, missing milestones, doing what you've done, you know, the whole time, and even becoming a little successful all on your own. It's a very relatable message, unfortunately, in these times that we currently live in. And of course, you know, the beat is fire as usual. This one is a darker kind of beat. He definitely just lays it all out. And as a closer to the album, tie this all up and wrap it up in a nice, beautiful bastard bow. It's actually a pretty good closer to the whole theme of the album. And if we're including the beats, the lyrics, and everything, and as the closer, genuinely, I'd have to give this an 8. I really enjoy this song, and as I've said, it's very relatable. And that wraps up track 15 and the album as a whole.
Me and Rocky cuddle and watch Smack DVD.
Bastard, 15 tracks. It is 2025. This came out 16 years ago, 2009. And here I am as a 23-year-old man, boy, whatever you want to say, reviewing it because no one's ever done that before. And all I have to say is have a good one. And if I can take one thing away from listening to this album and as a message, as something to take within, the message of Bastard is youth is a beautiful thing, and as angsty and as angry and as many feelings we like to fester and let out, some individuals are always going to be more troubled than you. And that's just a fact.